So first things first, let's take a moment to center ourselves in prayer. And so right where you are, if you would take a deep cleansing breath and just inhale and exhale. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Father, Mother God, we bless tonight's class. We thank you for a powerful session. We thank you that this idea of wealth seeps into the consciousnesses of each person, that there is an awakening to the wealth consciousness that never goes back to sleep. I thank you for empowering me to share this message, and I thank you for waking up each soul to its reality. In the name and the nature and the one that we call the Christ, this prayer is so, and so it is. And amen. So, just a little preamble. So, wealth is more than money, and that's really the subject of tonight. We're going to talk about parts 3 and 4 of the book. I'll walk you through, I'll do like I did last week. I'll tell you the parts of the story that are actual and the parts of the story that are fabricated. But this is a parable to teach a principle. And the principle that's being taught is that essentially from beginning to end, that wealth is in your hands. It is not waiting for government approval. It is not waiting for agreement from a certain number of entities, that it is within your power right where you are to create wealth in your experience. And more than a creation of wealth, it's more of a realization of wealth. And so the thing that I really want you to hold on to is that wealth is a feeling long before it is a lived reality. You've heard Reverend Ike say that feeling gets the blessing, right? Feeling gets the blessing, because what happens with feeling is that feeling is creative. And many times, many of us go through life feeling poor, feeling like we don't have, feeling like there's not enough. And then that feeling becomes our lived experience. But the thing is that you had to learn to feel that way. I mean, how many times did you get to, have you heard someone say, if you have not been the one to say it, I didn't know I was poor. I didn't know my family was poor. That you have to be taught to feel poor. And so if you can be taught to feel poor, then you can be taught to feel wealthy. So one of the things that I want to every session share with you a spiritual practice. And the practice that I want to share with you today is reading something positive every day. Reading something positive every day. This is a really powerful practice, and I recommend doing it at the very top of your day. And the reason being is that when you read something positive at the very top of your day, that what happens is that it orients you, that it positions you for it reorients the mind. And I shared this when we were doing the May McCarthy Path to Wealth. But I don't know about you, but sometimes I wake up and I'm not necessarily in my right mind. I might wake up and on my mind are all of the things that have got to get done. Today was one of those days that I knew I was going to be at the office for EFC Wealth Management. I knew that I had to get all of my elements for the Sunday service uploaded and linked properly in the run of show for the editor. I knew that I had to secure different videos from different people. There were many, many different things that I knew that I needed to get done. And so when I woke up this morning, that was on my mind. I didn't wake up like, oh God, it'd be nice if I did that, but that's not what happened. I woke up thinking about, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this. And so I made a practice of reading something positive first thing in the morning. And what that does is that it orients the mind. It orients the mind back to God. Now, I learned about this service, I guess you can call it that. It's not a service; it's a blog called Bowl of Sake, and I was reading some magazine, and the and they were interviewing Oprah, and she was the one. She said she reads a bowl of sake every day, and I was like, well, if Oprah does it, guess what I'm doing? And so I'll share with you today's entry, and then I'll share with you one more piece. So this is today's message. It says, "The fire of devotion purifies the heart of the devotee and leads unto spiritual freedom." And sometimes just that one sentence might be enough, or I might keep going and read the whole thing. Now, I signed up for the newsletter, and so it actually sends to my email. But then you could also find a devotional. So this is a devotional written by Hannah Moore Kohas, and Hannah Moore Kohas is the was the favorite poet of Myrtle Fillmore, favorite writer of Myrtle Fillmore, and she is who wrote the poem that inspired Johnny Coleman. So many of us know the story of Johnny Coleman, that she read this thing, but it was one sentence that stuck out to her that said, "God is my health, I can't be sick." Well, the person who wrote that poem is Hannah Moore Kohas. So this book is it's free online. It's called Universal Blossoms, and so I've been reading it. And so the entry for today says, "I am not care burdened and anxious." What happened? I woke up anxious, right? So this is putting me back in my right mind, because my spiritual ego, the image of God, assumes all my cares and will bear all my burdens. Again, what I'm doing here is that I'm reorienting the mind. This is a, when part of being on the spiritual path is not that you are forever on the spiritual path and you never falter or never have a tough day or never get upset, or there's no such thing. Being on the spiritual path means that you have tools to keep you on the path, that you have tools to reorient you. And so, we talked last week about having affirmations. I shared with you the quote that I read that I from Theodore Roosevelt that I rewrote in feminine pronouns. That again, these are all things to reorient the mind, right? Because and you know this, if you don't get handle on the mind will go anywhere, and anything can catch our attention. Not to mention go on social media and the stuff that catches our attention, the stuff that's happening in our lives. All of those things can catch our attention and make us feel a certain way. And then the thing about feeling is that feeling gets the blessing. And so you could have something happen in your family life that completely sets you back and emotionally, and now you're feeling anger, or you're feeling pity, or you're feeling frustration, or whatever feelings are, that might have been brought up. Those feelings are creative, and they're creating in your experience. So I just wanted to share that, because I think that's just a powerful tool that you should know about. And I guess what I'm trying to tell you is that a spiritual practice is not optional. A spiritual practice is not optional, that this is an everyday thing. Now, I don't know if you have a personality like mine, but I use trackers. And so I actually like track, did I do the things that I say are mine to do? And that's one of the ways, but that may not be your personality. Again, what I care about is, how do you get yourself to do those things on a daily basis? If you use a tracker, that's great. But if you have another method, use that method, as long as you do it every day, because we become what we do every day. Okay, y'all about to see a little 7-year-old get himself in trouble. Mhm. Here's your drink. Goodbye. Goodbye. Okay. All right. Wonderful. So let's dive in. Or any questions on that? Is anyone struggling with setting up a morning routine or setting up a daily spiritual practice?
No, but one thing that you did mention is our beloved daily inspiration. What is it called?
That's it.
Yes,
The DI. Yes.
daily inspiration for
Yes,
better
yes,
living.
yes. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you for saying that. I don't
Sure.
always publicize the DI, but you're right. The DI is right there. And this is the entry day. How often do you question God? Are you someone who constantly questions God when receiving inspiration and guidance? How many times has God spoken to your heart, and rather than following God's direction and promise, you stop and question the validity of the promise? Do you ask, are you sure, God? Are you like Zechariah, who refused to believe the message of the angel sent to him by God? His disbelief resulted in him being unable to speak until God's promise of a son was made manifest. When God gives a promise, there is no need to question it. There is a need or requirement, however, for you to accept it and move forward without fear or doubt. Always remember that God's will for you is absolute good and only good. Accept and give praise and thanks for all that God has provided for you, and stop questioning your promised good. That's today's entry. Thank you for bringing that up. Anybody else? Anyone else? Does everyone have a daily practice? Let's start there. Let me just put people on the spot. Constance, what is your daily practice? I don't think Sherri may call her name. Constance, are you going to share with us your daily practice? Or Dr. Brenda? Or Claudette?
I use the daily inspiration, and
Mm,
I also get it online,
beautiful,
so
beautiful.
I can even before I move, I can turn it on and look at it.
And
So
what does and is this something that you do? You do it in the morning? Does it
I
come
do it.
all through the day, or
I
how?
do it first thing before I do anything else.
Mhm, mhm. Constance?
Okay, my practices in the morning, um, I listen to a CD, and I've been doing this since 2005, so I know it verbatim. So after I get out of the shower, I click it on and I start my affirmations while I'm loving my body.
Mhm.
And then I get dressed, and then I sit. You said not to sit in the bedroom or wherever, but that's where I do my little prayer. So I sit on the edge of the bed and I put in my headphones and I do a 15-minute meditation.
Mhm.
Then I write, I'm doing a 40-day abundance.
Yeah.
So I'm writing my affirmation, and then you got to think about it 15 minutes. So that's another, contemplation. And then I write down what it means or what I got from it. Then I read the money poem and do a prayer for the day. And then I read the DI.
Mhm.
So by the time I get up, I'm a little fortified. I'm ready for my day.
That's
I'm ready
awesome.
for my day.
Yes, yes, yes. Anybody else? Is anyone else? Is anyone struggling to get a spiritual practice going? Is anyone struggling to get a spiritual practice going? Alita, what about you? Uh-oh.
Wait, was that for me?
I will go to you. Yes. What about you?
I think you're breaking up, or is it just my phone? I'm not
No,
sure.
you're fine. We can hear you fine.
Oh, okay. Am I struggling? Not really. I think that I have a practice.
Okay.
Or only thing that's stopping it right now from stopping me from following it completely is my sleep cycle. But once my sleep cycle is on, I have I wake up in the morning and I have to do push-ups. I have to do 50. I have to do 50 regardless, and I have to think
Good.
about. I have to I do 50 while thinking about the 50 gates. I don't know if you familiar with the 50 gates from Genesis.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm not familiar with it, but
Yeah. I do 50 while thinking about that. So that's my practice.
Beautiful,
Yep.
beautiful.
I try to do it in one setting. It's difficult, so sometimes I just do two, but I try to go in one setting.
Beautiful. Dude, thank you for sharing that. I love that. So my practice, I'll tell you what it looks like. So when I get up in the morning, the alarm goes off, I jump out of bed and I immediately get on my rebounder. And my rebounder is a little mini trampoline and that wakes me up because
Mhm.
if I did anything slower, I would go back to sleep. I would go back to sleep. I immediately get
Yep.
up, get on the rebounder, and then I do the reading and then I do the other thing. So beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I want to encourage you guys to have a spiritual practice. We become what we do every day. There's a shaping that happens with the daily activity. And so I want to encourage you to make that choice for yourself. It's going to make a massive difference. All right, I am on page 13 of the Money Poems. And I'll read a little bit of it. It says, after I received my degree in 1992, that actually happened, I went to visit my oldest brother, Greg. He had just opened his own law practice and was struggling with his new business. I was hoping to intern with him while I figured out what I was going to do with the rest of my life. We arranged to discuss my internship over lunch. When I arrived at his office, he was still on a morning conference call that was running long. Always a go getter, Greg never ceased to impress me. I was proud of him for making the leap to start his own practice. That took a lot of guts. As I waited for Greg to finish his call, I studied his small office. On the wall, he proudly displayed his diplomas from undergrad and law school. He'd even framed the letter informing him that he'd passed the bar exam. The table across from Greg's desk was crowded with framed photos of our family. Greg's graduation from law school, my first game as cheerleader, John's saxophone solo in front of the mayor, and much more. As I scanned his office, one particular photo caught my eye. It was a picture of Grandma Ellie and Grandpa dancing at a posh event. They were dressed in formal attire. I recognized it as one of the clippings Grandma Ellie had shared with us when she was alive. Seeing that photo reminded me of afternoons with Grandma Ellie, listening to fascinating stories from her youth. Those were the days. I hadn't seen that picture in years. What ends up happening is she goes over, she picks up the frame clipping to get a closer look. And as she does, this worn piece of paper gently floats from the back of the frame. And while her brother Greg is on the phone, she realizes that it is a poem just like the one that she has been given. And this is an amazing discovery because until this point, she thought that she had the only poem that existed. It never occurred to her that there may have been other poems. And so, what it goes on to say, over lunch, Greg told me that Grandma Ellie gave him the poem just before she passed away. Like me, he held on to his poem because it reminded him of the days they had spent together. Thursday was Greg's day. He shared with me that he used the poem for emotional support, and especially when faced with tough financial situations, oftentimes with unbelievable results. And he too thought that he was the only one that Grandma Ellie had given a poem to. So they're excited because they have made this discovery. And if they have two poems, is it possible that the other siblings have other poems? And so they can't wait to get, to the next family dinner. The family gets together for Sunday dinner every Sunday. And so this is going to be the moment. And so they said after dinner, Greg and I called, I'm on page 15. Greg and I called everyone into the living room. We had a big announcement to make, which got everyone excited. As the whole family listened, I told them about my breathtaking experience at Greg's office and how I discovered a special poem given to Greg by Grandma Ellie and that she had given me one too. I shared with them how we had each been using the poems in our lives and how it had never occurred to us that Grandma Ellie might have given a poem to anyone else other than ourselves. How neither of us had ever spoken to another about our poems because we felt it might stir up jealousy among family members. and how both Greg and I secretly thought we were each Grandma Ellie's favorite. Everyone, like clockwork, curiously broke into subdued laughter. Now, this family structure is actually Mark's family structure. So, my co writer's family structure. He is, he's not the baby, but he's like the middle of like, I think 5 or 6 kids. So, like I said, we borrow from different elements of our lives and combine them to create this story. Continued sharing stories that I thought only I knew, but to my surprise, everyone seemed to be familiar with. The more I talked, the louder the laughter became until everyone was in hysterics. I couldn't help but to ask what was so funny. They continued to laugh for several minutes until the laughter finally subsided, and we began to talk amongst ourselves. We discovered that each one of us thought we were Grandma Ellie's favorite. The joke was on all of us. The truth is that she loved us all equally. As Greg and I continued to share what our poems meant to us individually, my brothers and sisters, one by one, began to pull familiar worn pieces of paper from their wallets and purses. The room went utterly silent, and we just looked at each other in awe. Grandma Ellie had given each of us a poem for the day of the week that we were assigned to take care of her. We all kept the poems to ourselves because of the same reason. As we gathered the pieces of paper on the coffee table, the profundity of the moment hit us all. No one spoke a word. We'd always heard of this great inheritance Grandma Ellie had for us, but never believed that it really existed. Now, to our amazement, right here on the coffee table in front of us were 7 powerful poems. Here was her legacy. These poems were our inheritance. I glanced at my dad, who had tears streaming from his eyes. I'd never seen my dad cry. He rose from his seat, and through his tears, he explained that it was time that he told us the truth about Grandma Ellie and the poems. Anxiously, we all sat forward in our seats, eager to hear about this incredible woman who'd meant so much to us and to our family and these mysterious poems. Daddy began to unfold a fabulous story of how our beloved Grandma Ellie and Grandpa were extremely wealthy and moved in only the most elite social circles of their time. The clippings Grandma Ellie shared with us when she was alive were but a mere glimpse of a life filled with riches. As Daddy spoke, I couldn't help but to interrupt and ask the one question that I'm sure was on everyone's mind. Daddy, if we come from money, what happened to it? So I want to stop right there for this moment, and I want to turn to the worksheet that I have, that I sent to everyone. And the one of the key things with the money poems is recognizing that wealth is more than money. And many of us are quick to say that wealth includes more than money. And in my book, if all you have is money, then you are not wealthy. I don't consider someone who their only source of wealth is their financial wealth. But it occurred to me that very often we don't inventory our wealth assets. Or if we do, we only mention the ones that can be immediately exchanged for money. And so I want to remedy that. And so I want to take a few moments. I want to set a timer. Here's my little timer. I want to set a timer. And I want you to just take, maybe we'll take 3 minutes and write as many things as you can in these different blanks. And I'm going to explain what they are. So there are cultural riches that you were given. And this can be culture by whatever way you define culture. This could be your family's culture. This could be your the community that you were raised in. It could be that culture. It could be the culture of the United States. uh, if you grew up in this country. So, however you define culture, I'm not putting any limitations on that. Then there is a type of riches of what we call intellectual riches. So there are people who are just quick-witted. They are fast on their feet, and they can come back faster than you could imagine. Then there are people who are they're not necessarily quick-witted, but it's like the way that they put together words. We had a minister visit a couple of weeks ago for Up Church, and he is a wordsmith in the sense that every time he teaches a lesson, he always manages to get an alliteration. And so he'll have, the three C's of faith, or the four G's of this. And I'm thinking, wait, how do you think of this? Like, my mind doesn't work that way. So again, that intellectual capital. And I want you, and the thing is that everybody has it. You may not be able to think of things to put in the blank just now. And so you may want to take this worksheet and go back and do it later, and that's okay. But I want you to get that that you have something that goes in each one of these blanks. And in fact, you have multiple things that go in all of these blanks. There is human riches. Again, there are things that you are able to do. Maybe you're a gifted athlete. Maybe you have incredible endurance or stamina. All of those things. You have social riches. Now, this could be maybe you're someone who's just a well-connected person. You're always in the right room with the right people. Or maybe you're socially gifted as a person, so you make friends easily, or people love to be around you, or maybe you're someone that people trust a lot, and so they often share their deepest secrets with you, and you don't even have to know them, and they feel comfortable with you. There are spiritual riches that, I count my relationship with God in this category, that there is a richness that my life has because of this relationship. And there is this certainty that I have about life and about the things of life, that I just don't worry in the way that one that I used to, or that I even see, say, other members of my family worrying. And then, not to exclude finances, but there are financial riches. And by this, I am referring to money or property or other financial assets. Are there any questions about any of these blanks and what goes in any of these blanks? Wonderful. So let's just take a moment right now. And if you could, I'm going to set a timer. Maybe I'll do a cool 5 minutes on my timer. It's about a little time. And what you want to do is just fill in the blanks with as many things as possible. And then I'm going to, we'll go into the breakout rooms for a few minutes, and I'll ask you to share some of the things that you expressed. And if anyone has a question, please don't hesitate to share that question. What are the types of riches that you recognize in your experience? Maybe under the blank for human, maybe you would include health. Maybe that is, maybe you are, I'm saying this, not saying that you are or not, but maybe you are of an advanced age, but you have absolutely radiant health. I would 100% say that that is a type of riches. because to not have to spend your money on um, healthcare, and you can spend your money on other things, is a massive blessing. Plenty of people who make their way all the way, and amass a ton of money, only to turn around and have to spend it to keep themselves well. All right. Yay! 2 minutes left. 2 minutes. $60. 60 seconds. Maybe under the spiritual category, one of the riches that you have is that you have a growing relationship with God. Maybe under the social riches, you not so much about being in the right room, but that you just are surrounded by really genuine and kind people. Maybe under the intellectual category, you're someone who's a voracious learner. And maybe that was something that was just taught to you because it was modeled by a parent or a primary caregiver. Or maybe it's something that I should have said this, the riches don't have to be something that was necessarily given. It could be something that was developed. I wouldn't say that I grew up in a home that was, we had a moral center, but not necessarily a spiritual center. I feel like that's something that I developed in my lifetime that I'm now giving back to my family. Okay, that's our time. That's our time on that. So I want to take a moment and go into a breakout room. And what I would love for you to do is just share maybe one thing that you have in each blank, that you wrote down in the blanks. So let's set up 2 rooms, and it will assign automatically. Yes. Okay, great. All right, I'm opening the rooms. Make sure you hit join, and I will pop into both rooms. And you're just sharing what you wrote on the paper as far as the types of riches that you have. Hello there.
Hello there.
I'm coming to join you guys first.
Okay.
What are some things that you put down on your list?
Okay, I'll start with culture.
Mhm.
First of all, I live in the United States and appreciate the gifts that I have. Running water, housing, transportation, anything and everything that is at our fingertips. So those are just some of the things. Intellectual, I'm fast-witted. I learned the dozens from my family, and I'm a gifted reader. I had I have a aunt. She had 9 kids. So they used to sit around and all of them had different daddies. So they all used to sit around, your daddy's so and so. So and I'm a gifted reader. I remember when I was in third grade or fourth grade, I read the assignment and then I'd be clowning around because I'm finished reading. So the teachers had to give me additional assignments because I read so fast.
I love
Um,
it.
Human, creative. I'm a singer and I'm extremely
You
healthy.
sing?
I can hold a note. Yes, at OGOT, we formed a group, Voices of Truth. So we used to sing a cappella at the church. So yeah, I can hold a tune. Um, Social, I make friends easy. I will engage in conversations with anyone and everyone. I'm nosy, so don't start a conversation. I don't even know you. And I'd be like, what? They'll be like, do you know them? No, but hey. And spiritual. I'm learning to be okay with being different and know that my world doesn't reflect everyone's because I swim in abundance. I swim in abundance, and I'm having the spiritual freedom to practice my own truth.
Yeah.
So that's spiritually. And financial, with this prosperity abundance, my every need is met.
Yes. 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 Yes.
So
Beautiful. What
that's
about
me.
you? I love that. I did not know that you sing. I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. Wanda, what about you?
Wow, I need to do my homework. I'll start with financial.
Uh-huh.
I am a thousandaire, maybe a 10,000aire. I'm moving towards that millionaire status.
Yes. Yes.
Cultural. My family have weekly family meals. My
Mm,
immediate family, we talk to each other on a daily basis, so that's something
mhm.
that's really important to us. Intellectual, I'm constantly taking classes and growing. Have great research and writing skills.
Mm.
Human, I'm empathetic, and going down to social, I'm very sociable. I'm a great listener, so I am one of those people that someone at the bus stop will tell me their life story. Spiritual, and like you
Mhm.
mentioned, I have a growing relationship with God. I'm in two classes at JCI right now,
Yeah.
and I will be taking a Lytton class at Upchurch.
Yes. 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 Thank you for saying that. I need to mention that before we go. Get everybody signed up because Reverend Sherri got something for y'all.
She always do.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
looking forward to
Yes.
it.
Yes. Yes. Let me go check in on the other room.
Okay.
Right, right, right.
All right, cool. So what about you, Dr. Brenda? Would you like me to go or would you like to go?
Um, it doesn't matter. You want to go? Because either way.
Okay, I'm gonna go real quick.
Hmm.
No, you go. No, you go. You go.
Okay. I too. Yeah, I grew up in D.C., but I have both of my parents were from South Carolina, so I use those Southern roots, and that has sustained me, through life. So I would definitely say the Southern roots. Intellectually, it just seems that I'm a magnet for information. I've always just, information just shows up. I'll go online and I'll go from one point to another, and I just find out so many different things.
Mm,
Um, Human, I too have. I'm not going to say great health, but I've not had bad health, which is a joy at my age. I'm 74. Social, I have ease in meeting people. I like people, and I feel real blessed because I still have friends that I've known since elementary school that I talk to every week. So I've known people over 50 some years and been friends.
good.
Spiritually, I've been really very fortunate. I got into New Thought early when I was in my 20s. So I got to meet a lot of the icons. I was in the church, in the meeting when Charles Barker was speaking. I've heard Ike speak, of Johnny Coleman, Barbara King. I mean, I've been through all of their services, and I've been real fortunate spiritually. And I guess, my mantra is always, I just let go and let God. No matter what, I just know God can handle it. And financially, I'm blessed because I'm able to retire. And I just know, because I let go and let God, that whatever the need is, it'll just be fulfilled. I just don't worry about it. Whatever the money need is, I just know that it'll come.
Amen.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying amen.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, you can do it. Just say it,
Yeah.
feel it, know it. You can, whatever it is, I believe it. I'm
Yeah.
telling you.
Yeah. And you are living proof. That's it. You are, Reverend Della would say you are proof of the truth.
Yes.
Beautiful. We got 2 minutes and then we're gonna close, come back to the main room. So let me go back. Minutes. Huh? Okay. Yeah, the host. Okay. I am. Okay, I think you guys are back. Let me go ahead and close the rooms. Yes, there we go. Okay, let's close the room. I was a little confused. I'm like, what was going on? So as we come back together, I'm going to get into part 4 and then we're going to close out for tonight. So, but I really, that exercise was important, is important because wealth is a feeling before it's a lived reality. Wealth is a feeling before it's a lived reality. And you may have to do some rewriting. This may not be true for everyone, but so maybe I'm just speaking about myself, that I had to do some rewriting on what on what made me feel like I was wealthy. Because if I was just judging according to bank balance, well, and really bank balance compared, because it's like, compared to what? Compared to someone who has nothing, or compared to someone who has, triplets and quadruplets of everything. So again, it is realizing that wealth is a feeling before it's a lived reality. And so you want to take the time to build the feeling of wealth inside of you. The feeling of wealth draws to you more wealth, and the feeling of broke pushes wealth out of your experience, even though wealth might be heading its way into your experience. The feeling of not having enough will keep it at bay. And so you want to practice feeling wealthy and putting yourself in places that remind you that you are wealthy. Wealth is always a feeling before it's a lived experience, because everything is a feeling before it's a lived experience. And so if you look at the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza, he talks about that, where you are, but I mean, it's not just him. Neville Goddard, Joseph Murphy, Reverend Ike, any one of them, they talk about living in the feeling of the experienced thing. Whatever it is that you are desiring to experience, you take yourself there and put yourself in that vibration. And so when I say that wealth is a feeling, what I'm saying is that wealth is a vibration, and you can vibrate at the level of wealth even before the riches are a living experience in your life. And you vibrating at that level will begin to create that reality for you. So I'm on page 19. It says, my dad glanced briefly toward my mom. They seemed to make some silent agreement before he continued speaking. When my dad died, he left Grandma Ellie an estate. This is the dad speaking, valued at over $2.5 million. He paused while we took in this incredible information. He then continued, you haven't heard me talk much about my older brother, Aaron. Aaron was a free spirit, and as a young adult, he stayed in trouble. He had a sense of entitlement and felt he could do anything without having to pay the price for it. Growing up, we both witnessed how our parents used the poems to build our family's wealth. And because of this, Aaron seemed to think that we were of a higher class and everyday rules didn't apply to us, or more specifically to him. We all knew my dad had an older brother, but we never knew much about him growing up. Now we knew why. It now made sense why Daddy always taught us to love all people equally and that there was nothing magical about being rich. He continued the story, but we could sense that it hurt to speak about these old memories. Aaron's attitude got him into one mess after another. With every catastrophe, Mama would come to his rescue. Eventually, he got into such trouble that Mama had to get a lien against our house to bail him out. Aaron promised to be responsible for the house note, but when he skipped town without notice, Mama lost the house. That incident drained her financially, and we haven't seen Aaron since. I guess he felt that the wealth had been created so easily that she would just magically recreate it again. Daddy continued, your grandmother and grandfather were partners in every sense of the word. Mama had been an instrumental partner for Grandpa in building our family's wealth. They did it together. I've known about these poems since I was a little boy. They're called the money poems. I saw Mama and Daddy use them all the time. Mama tried to give the poems to me when I became an adult, but I refused. Aaron's behavior disgusted me so much that I didn't want to have anything to do with him. I'd seen how much his arrogance hurt my parents, and I knew I didn't want that in my life. So I chose to raise you more modestly, and that meant without the money poems. Mama didn't agree with my perspective, but she respected my wishes to raise my family the way I wanted to. She wanted to share the money poems with you for quite some time, but I refused to let her. That all changed after her heart attack. She and I had a long talk. Grandma Ellie explained to Daddy that her constantly bailing Aaron out was something she felt she had to do, and she would have done the same for him. How she loved them both unconditionally and wanted the best for them. She expressed how important it was for her to leave us something and persuaded Daddy to let her share the poems with us. He agreed under the condition that each child would receive only one poem each. And she couldn't tell us how to use the poem or that she'd given a separate poem to each one of us. If we discovered that fact on our own, so be it. But in accordance with Daddy's wishes, it had to be our own discovery. And of course, he tells the story, and how they um how the grandma Ellie utilized the poems, how she used them to reorient her mind after having to deal with, say, a bill collector or some other financial challenge. And then the family, Denise and her brothers and sisters, decide to use the poems the way that Grandma Ellie and Grandpa used them, and they also promise to respect the good that they knew would come their way. And the youngest sister, Julie, puts them together in a book, and so they each have now a copy of the poems, and so they speak the poems aloud to themselves, to one another, to their families, and they use them to basically manage life. And she writes me, I write. Our lives have changed so dramatically since that incredible Sunday. All of us are now millionaires. Greg's law practice has become one of the city's largest firms. My brother John has toured all over the world as a premier saxophonist. My co-writer in this, Mark Allen Felton, is a world-renowned saxophonist, traveling literally all over the world. He's only grounded stateside because of COVID. Randy is a physician with a booming practice. Shelly and Karen both own more than 25 million in real estate each, and Julie the baby has a string of successful daycare centers. As for me, I've been developing charter schools to help kids in poor communities excel academically. The money poems have done so much good for my family. It's been an amazing journey. It's time to share this secret with the world. I now understand clearly why Grandma Ellie gave me the poem about serving. She knew this information needed to serve more than just our family, and I would take on that responsibility of doing so. That was what she was trying to communicate to me so intensely back then. I finally got it. So it is with great pleasure that I present to you the money poems. Remember, a poem a day brings money your way. So this story is meant to communicate principles. So in the same way that Robin Sharma wrote The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari or the 5 a.m. Club, that it's a parable and it's meant to communicate a principle. And so in the last section, we talked about how it's about identifying the ways that you are wealthy and the things that are passed down to you. It is not money that makes you rich. It is all of the fullness of life that makes you rich, that makes you truly, truly wealthy. And that money is one part of it, but money in the absence of any of those other things, you, I mean, you may call yourself rich, but that is not, I do not consider that rich. The riches is friends, it's good company, it's, fun experiences, it's laughter, it's all of those things, it's good health. Again, you don't want to be that person with all the money in the world paying every doctor that you can get to because you have no health. So your health is a type of wealth. In this last section, one of the points that I want to highlight is that the 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 father, in a different way, I see him as like the son who stayed home in the story of the prodigal son. That if I don't have it, then I won't be corrupted by it. And so his attitude toward money also had to be healed. So Aaron might have been the one that squandered the family's inheritance, but the dad is the one who tried to, who is so upstanding and rigid about it that he wasn't fully enjoying life. That life is inclusive of all of the things that we have inherited from our family members, from our culture, from our world, that this is all a part of our wealth, that my wealth is not exclusive to just what I can count on a bank sheet, that my wealth is all of those, all that plus. And so the dad, in his own way, had to have a healing, had to develop his own comfort with money. I heard a podcast that someone sent me, and it's making me think of it right now because of the story with the dad. There's a woman, her name is Barbara. I don't know what her real last, I mean, not real, her maiden name is, because she's gone back to her maiden name. But the name that she used to go by is Barbara Stanny. That's her ex-husband's name. And she told the story. I followed her when I first was putting the money poems together. And then how you follow some teachers and then you move on and then come back. So I knew who she was. And, but I hadn't, read any of her things for a really long time. And she shared the story that she had come from money, and she married a man and she had an inheritance at a trust fund, and she married a man who was a compulsive gambler, and he gambled the entire fortune away. Having money is about peace of mind. And she has since gotten back on her feet, and she talked about working through the shame of all of that, and embracing who she is. But it's realizing all of the things that make you who you are, that even the things that you would say are the not so good things, they're all a part of your inheritance as well, because those things also taught you lessons. And so while the dad would not want to claim the stuff that Aaron did, that the things that Aaron did, that taught him a lesson, that gave him some information about life and about how he wanted to live life. But he was trying to control the experience of his children, and you cannot squash an idea, and you cannot squash the hopes and the dreams and the desires of the next generation. You can make choices for yourself, but you have to free others to make their choices for themselves. And so the dad had to develop an emotional wealth, um, because he had been so stung by the way that his brother had treated, in his opinion, had treated the family. Any questions? Any questions? Well, If there are no questions, then I will see you guys next week. Next week, we're going to talk about the poems. We'll talk about the writing of the poems and the different things that inspired the different lines of the poems. And we will recite the poems together. Wonderful. Have a blessed evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'll see you guys next week.
Thank you. God
Thank
bless.
you.
Everyone have a blessed